Welcome to Learning Goal 5. We are going to be talking about now putting fractions and decimals in order. So we're going to be pulling from all kinds of things that you already know how to do and a little bit that you don't know how to do and sort of smoosh it all together. So on a new piece of paper, go ahead and write your learning goal at the top and we will get started. So first we're going to do a little bit of review. So if you are putting fractions in order, sort of like learning goal 3 where you had to compare them and find which one was bigger, well now you're just doing that with more. So we talked in learning goal 3 about if you have a common denominator, then the numerator is, the bigger the numerator, the bigger the fraction, right? The more pieces you have. However, if you notice in this one, they are sort of like what I said. Put them in order based on the size of the numerator. But we have a mixed number here. So automatically this tells me I have 2 wholes. And these are all just a fraction of a whole. So before I even look at anything else, I know that 2 and 2/12 is the biggest one. Okay, beyond that, now I'm going to look at these. I have 4/12, I have 1/12, I have 12/12. So again, I'm just putting them in order based on the size of their numerator. I know 1/12 is going to be the smallest. If I have 1/12 of a piece of pizza, that is smaller than 4/12. Okay? So then again, 4 would come next. I'm just going by size of numerator, and then 12. So when I put these fractions in order from least to greatest, and it's really important to look at what this says, otherwise you might have them completely backwards. I've done it.
Oh, yes.
1/12, 4/12, 12/12, and 2 and 2/12.
All right, so now we're going to think about, okay, well, what if we have some different fractions with a common numerator? We're going to do the same thing. Now, be careful, though. I'm looking here. It says put the following numbers in order from greatest to least. So we got to think about that as well.
Trying to trick you.
So the bigger the denominator, that means the smaller the pieces. And you can think back to either pizza or cookie, but if you have a cookie broken up into fourths, those pieces are going to be a lot bigger than hundredths, right?
Yeah.
100 little pieces. So now that we know that, we can look at our fractions here and sort of plan accordingly. So it says 3/12, 3/15, 3/4, or 3/100. Right away, I can think, well, 3/4 is definitely our greatest one because we're only breaking it up into 4 pieces. So then, and really 3/4 is really close to 1 as well, you can think about.
Yep.
Then we're going to scoot, looking here at 3/12 and 3/15, we're going to want to just scoot those over, and then of course our 3/100 is going to be the very smallest then. So it's sort of walking you through looking at common numerators. Oh, there. We like to make sure they're evenly spaced.
I have issues with things being in order. Sorry.
All right. So now what you're going to do is you are going to look at 1 and 2 here, jot these down in your journal, and we're actually not going to show you these, so you're just going to want to make sure they're marked properly in your journals when you discuss, and we can talk about them later in class.
Yep. Alright, so what happens if you are not lucky enough to have any common denominators or common numerators? If they are uncommon, one way is to think about, like we did with the benchmarks method in Learning Goal 3, is think about whether it's really close to 1 or really close to 0. So as an example, we have 2/10 and we have 5/6. So if I'm thinking something split into 10 pieces and I only have 2 of them, well, that's more close to 0 than it is to 1. And 5/6, I have 5 out of the 6 total pieces. That's a lot closer to 1 whole. So without even really doing much more than just thinking out loud about it, I can tell which one is bigger. But as a visual too, just to see the 2/10 again is pretty close to 0. 5/6 is pretty close to a whole. So 5/6 is greater, or if you had to put them in order, you just have them in the order they're in right now. And then we're going to use that then, remembering that trick, to try and put these 3 fractions in order. So I'm just going to, talk through how I do this. So thinking out loud, if I add 7/8, that's pretty close to a whole. 1/5 is pretty close to 0. And 3/7 is I mean, I don't really know exactly what that's equivalent to, but it's somewhere in the middle. So 7/8 or 1/5 is definitely the smallest, and 7/8 is definitely the biggest. And even without knowing what 3/7 equaled, I know it's in the middle somewhere. So that is, that it's, I mean, it doesn't have to be, we didn't ask you exactly what each of these were. We just wanted you to put them in order. So that would be enough to figure that out. But, sometimes it's not always going to be that easy.
Right.
Like this.
Sometimes you might see some decimals. I thought we were learning about fractions. Now soon we have decimals too, but we're going to show you how they're related. So what do we do when we have 6/8 and then 35/100ths, if you remember from our decimals unit, and then 3/10ths? Well, let's look at this 3/10ths. And sorry, did I skip something? I think what we want to talk about, though, is sometimes
we have to convert them to decimals.
Yeah, it just might be easier to look at them all as decimals, since you already know how to put those in order once you see them. So we're going to teach you how to look at a fraction and actually change it into a decimal.
So make sure you write these steps down, too, that Ms. Van Dam is going to go through.
Yes, so step 1, jot down if you need to pause first, do that. Step 1, though, is just rewrite the fraction as a division problem. And you can think about, like, this little numerator over here is going to do a little backflip and end up in our little division house over here. So there's our numerator now. And now our 10 goes over here. And we want to ask ourselves, okay, well, how many times can 10 go into 3?
None.
Yeah. So what do we do?
And I think this is probably why a lot of people, I found students mix the 3 and the 10 up, because I think 10 can't go into 3, so that must be wrong. But no, you set it up right. The n, the numerator, goes on the inside of the decimal, or of the division sign. So we just have to do something else to that 3 to make it so we can divide.
Yeah. So here we are solving this division problem, but what we're going to do is, thinking back to decimals, if we just add a decimal and however many zeros you want to add there, it's still this value of 3, but now we have something to work with to solve the division problem. So we both agree that just 3 zeros is enough. That should be plenty, and in this case you don't even need that many, but that's always a good rule of thumb. Just tack on your decimals and at least 3 zeros to help you out here. So now what you can do, though, is you can think to yourself, okay, well, 10 can actually go into 30 then.
It's like you're ignoring the decimal.
Yeah, you're just sort of ignoring that.
You have it there, but you're ignoring it for now.
So that way you can think about 10 going into 30. That's much easier. And that goes into, 10 goes into 33 times then. And then you just have to move up that decimal and, whoops.
I'm just going through
just going through the steps here. So now we have 30 minus 30 equals 0. And so we can basically be done. You just want to think to yourself that I just moved that decimal up here. So 3/10 is equal to
3/10.
3/10. That's how we say it, but this is what it looks like in decimal form.
3/10 is 3/10.
Oh, I love it. All right. So please make sure that you have these steps down. You'll probably even want to write down how we did this too.
Yeah.
We started with 3/10 and how it turned into this. That would be a wise thing to do. All right.
This one, me?
Yes, I think this is you.
Okay. So this is the other fraction that was in that example. You were given a decimal and then 2 fractions. And so this is the other fraction. So 6/8. Now the 3/10, I guess if you notice that 3/10 is 3/10 is a decimal, you could have just rewritten it that way. 6/8, probably not so easy. So you do have to, again, divide this. So my numerator is going to go on the inside. I'm going to slide my denominator over. And I think, does 8 go into 6? It does not.
No.
So I'm going to add my zeros again. Now this time I'm just going to sort of add them one at a time just so you can sort of see the process. So does 8 go into 60? How many times does 8 go into... Oh, just kidding. I did add them all in. I thought I would have, but okay. Add them all in. Again, I'm going to just ignore my decimal for now. So how many times does 8 go into 60 without going over? 7 times. Now we multiply that out. 8 times 7 is 56. And subtract it, and we have 4. Now this is why I'm going to bring down my 0. Whoop, slide that baby down. That's why we need more than 1. Now I'm going to do how many times does 8 go into 40? Well, 8 goes into 45 times. And I'm going to, again, multiply it out, subtract, and I get 0. Which means now I can pretty much ignore that 0 up there. Just slide my decimal up. And I've got 75 hundredths. So 6/8 is actually equivalent to 75 hundredths. So when we look at these numbers, this is back to, again, that original one. Well, I know 6/8 we just figured out is equivalent to 75 hundredths. What should I just put down there? 3 tenths is equivalent to 3 tenths. And I'm just going to move this one down so we have them all in order. So now it's just a matter of looking at these decimals and figuring out which one is the smallest and the biggest. So 3 tenths is smaller than 35 hundredths. And again, I can think of this with a 0 at the end, if that's just a little review. So it'd be like 30 hundredths, 35 hundredths, and then 75 hundredths. So these are now in order from least to greatest. Phew!
Ooh, lots of steps, or just really thinking things through. It does take time. So now what you're going to do is try these next two, and we want you to convert just these fractions to decimals. That's all we want you to do at first, and then we'll worry about putting them into order. But think about what...
You'll use these next.
Yes, so it's worth it to do it.
You're going to have to do it anyways.
5/9 and 3/8. See what they would look like as decimals going through those steps. All right, now you'll notice there's our 5/9, but you should have that in decimal form now. But you are going to put the following fractions and decimals in order from least to greatest again. So write them down. Think about the order, think about the process, changing them all into decimals, and bring them back tomorrow so we can go over them.
Good luck.
Good luck.